A pretty big shakeup in leadership at Xbox could be pointing to where things are going. We've seen a lot of different opinions and people weighing in on what this means and what it will look like. So I wanted to commentate on just a couple of things. I actually think some of this is going to be good for Xbox with some of the things shifting around. Now, some of this could lead to things that those of us who have been a little worried about the direction of Xbox more away from high-end console, next-gen gaming, more to a cloud focus or an ecosystem focus, you might actually see that come to fruition now that we're even seeing shifting within the marketing, like who's in charge of the marketing. So we're going to look at the person that is now going to be the new CMO, what's his history with Microsoft, and what is he going to bring to the table for Xbox. But we're also going to take a look at two moves in particular that I think one is good, but the other has some people kind of scratching their heads in light of what Xbox has been doing up to now. So if you didn't hear about this, they essentially pushed out a, sort of an announcement. I think it was like an internal memo first, and then The Verge reported on it. And there's this image that's been floating around. I'm sure you've seen it with the sort of the new structure. Phil Spencer obviously still at the top. But the first thing people sort of drilled down on was the fact that Matt Booty, his new position, he will lead and expand organization inside Microsoft Gaming that now includes ZeniMax and Bethesda, according to the publication. So the internal memo obtained by The Verge here, Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer says that ZeniMax will continue to operate as a limited integration entity led by Jamie Leder, president and CEO, reporting to Matt. Now, there's varying opinions on what this means, okay? So there's kind of two things I want to talk about here. First, my producer and some other people are looking at this, and they think this is kind of like a kick in the door. Like, hey, ZeniMax, listen, we're going to have some more oversight, after what happened with Redfall, sort of letting them be doing their own thing. But then Phil Spencer's commentary sort of makes it sound like, no, they're just going to continue to operate in that way. Just the language of will continue to operate. That means what they've been doing is going to continue. It's just instead of reporting to Phil, they will now be reporting to Matt. I personally think that they need more oversight of the studios at Xbox. I think they would have been tuned in maybe a little bit faster about the state of Halo Infinite. They wouldn't or shouldn't have launched Redfall in the state that it launched in. And I know that Phil said in the kind of funny interview that they got involved earlier with Starfield, and they kind of flooded the studio with people to help. I personally have always theorized that was helping them getting Starfield working on the Series S. There wouldn't have been a sudden impetus or need or like all hands on deck, at Bethesda. I think they were probably doing just fine. But I do think overall there needs to be more oversight. And I don't know, though, and this is where I've seen some pushback. So there are some people that are split. Like, is this a kick in the door moment? Like, is Booty now going to be like overseeing ZeniMax? Is ZeniMax now sort of in a position where, they're being more scrutinized with what they're doing and what they're building? But other people have said Matt Booty hasn't done a great job overseeing less studios. So up to now, Microsoft has not had the number of studios that they now have. Even prior to owning ZeniMax, it feels like studio management hasn't been particularly good. Why did 343 get to the state that it got, where they were like in an emergency situation that they had to bring in Joseph Staten to try to fix everything, and then that didn't even really work, and then they got a shippable product, they got Halo Infinite out the door, and then whatever Staten was planning has essentially been scrapped. He's now gone. Other people are now gone. Leadership, layoffs, all those things at 343. And somebody would say, listen, why would you put Booty in charge of more studios? It hasn't been a great rhythm or cadence. It hasn't been great with respect to quality up to now. I have a really hard time disagreeing with them. I think Booty's got something to prove at this point. That's a funny thing to say. His last name always makes these videos a little bit funny. But I do. I think he's got something to prove. It's like, listen, you got to turn things around. The cadence of games has not been good. The studio management and studio oversight seems to be non-existent. I still continue to think that the contractual policy was one of the leading problems at 343. According to the Bloomberg article, about half of the staff was on a contract, which means every 18 months they have to leave. They're not allowed to stay on past 18 months. That's a corporate policy at Microsoft that I think is going to make things really hard on studios if they have to lean on contract workers to any degree. That makes it very difficult to have a cohesive team and good vision and, sort of the longevity of the project. So that's kind of the first change, that people had some of their own commentary on. I'm not too thrilled about Matt Booty being in charge of more studios, and we'll see what comes of this. Like, we know Pete Hines left. We know some people from Bethesda have left. We're not sure if we're going to see more talent exodus from Bethesda and what that means for the future of, like, Elder Scrolls or any other titles that they might be working on. But the next change, I think, is one worth celebrating. Sarah Bond has now been put into a different position as well. Spencer writes that Bond will lead a team meant to manage the platform of today and build the platform of tomorrow in an effort to bring together devices, player and creator experiences, platform engineering, strategy, business planning, data and analytics, and business development. So you can see up here in the picture, she is now president of Xbox, Booty's president of game content and studios, and then Phil will be CEO of Microsoft Gaming, which that is where he has been. I actually think that Sarah Bond is really good for the brand. I think she could become the more front-facing person. She could become the face of Xbox, and then Phil could take more of a back seat. I think Phil has gotten to the point where I think he needs to travel less. I think they need to have other people doing that. I know it wears on people. The last couple times he's done an interview, I could almost feel the fatigue in the man. It's like, we know that these jobs demand a lot of people traveling and constantly going into different time zones. I mean, that was one of the things that led to Jim Ryan retiring. And I honestly wonder if Phil is getting ready to retire, right? If he can kind of slam dunk this big deal, set an amazing trajectory for Xbox and gaming, he will have done his job, right? And what he took over in the situation that he took over at Xbox was pretty bad, right? You take over basically a division that Microsoft is looking at closing, and he pulls it out of the fire, sets it on a much better trajectory, and now they own more studios, more properties than any other platform out there. Now, I really hope they stop trying to gobble up the industry. He said it would be like a career moment to buy Nintendo. I do not think that's something that we want to see. I don't think that is anything that we want to see in the industry. I don't want Amazon, Google, Sony, Tencent, any of the big players. I don't want anybody gobbling up a platform, let alone any more publishers. But it's looking like that's where things are headed. 2024, there are already analysts out there that are saying there'll be more acquisitions, and we know that Sarah Bond actually visited, I believe it was Sega. So we know they were interested in Sega, and I think that that's really bad for the industry. I don't think that's good. And with the big deal going through for Activision Blizzard, Microsoft and a lot of these companies might find it easier to buy smaller publishers, since they just bought probably one of the largest you could buy in one fell swoop. But it's the next thing. I think it's the next change that could really be an indication of where things are going to be going. So we're going to go to The Verge for this part. And it says here, over on the marketing side, Chief Marketing Officer Copacella is stepping aside to make way for Takeshi Nomoto. Now, I've seen other places that Capacella, or however you say this, that individual was fired. I don't know if we've verified that, but here's the quote. Takeshi has been at the heart of our cloud transformation, says Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella in an internal memo to employees. I'm thrilled for him to step into the CMO role for Microsoft and drive our vision forward. So this guy that's going away has been at the company for 32 years, famously appeared on stage alongside co-founder Bill Gates during the presentation where a pre-release version of Windows 98 crashed into a blue screen of death. Capacella has led marketing at Microsoft for decades throughout the transition to cloud, the launch of Xbox, and many more movements. So I think it's less interesting that this gentleman's leaving, okay? Because 32 years, it could just be retiring, or maybe it just is. Maybe it's like, look, we want to replace you. It could be, a push out. I don't know. That's not what's important. What's important is, who is Takeshi Nomoto? And this is where I think we're going to get a glimpse at where things are headed. Now, Takeshi Nomoto has been at the company for 26 years. I actually, when I first saw his picture, he looked quite young. His picture on LinkedIn could be an older picture. And I thought, wow, 26 years, when did he start working there? But when you start looking at his history with the company, you start to see where his expertise and what he's been doing could really, really lend itself to the transformation of Xbox into an ecosystem. So right here, first and foremost, for 7 years, was the corporate vice president of Office 365 marketing. Okay, Office 365 marketing is notorious as, moving everybody to more of a cloud-based subscription business model, and this has been something that a lot of us have been concerned about with respect to gaming, right? They're going to shove gaming in that direction. They're going to take Game Pass toward that. Now, Phil Spencer recently said that they're not interested in doing exclusives to Game Pass, but I don't believe that. I think long term that's going to be the goal, is that if you want to play their games, if you want to play some of their property, or you want to play certain things that they have, it will be behind a subscription, or it'll be so much better. It'll be, more expensive or less appealing to buy the game outright. Now, that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing that he's been doing. So 7 years doing that, and then 8 years doing cloud marketing. Again, corporate vice president. So he has put in the work with respect to both getting people to go to cloud-based subscription model for Office 365, but he's also been out there getting cloud and marketing cloud. So this right here, that's basically, 8 years and 7 years. I mean, that's a lot of time marketing those two things in particular. Now, for 3 years, he's been executive vice president and the CMO, commercial chief marketing officer here. So this guy is a marketing guy, right? He really, really does the marketing and has been doing it for a very, very long time. And you can see right here, October of 2023, he is now executive vice president and CMO. So this is a change that I believe is an indication of trajectory. They want his expertise. Listen, dude, you spent 7 years getting people to switch to cloud-based, subscription-based business model. You've got a bunch of people in the cloud. You understand how to market cloud. You understand how to market subscription. You're going to help us bring the ecosystem forward, okay? So this is where you might think, great, that's good. My personal take is this continues to make Xbox drift away from me as a consumer. I prize high-level games, next-gen quality, AAA, out of the regular cadence, out of the regular rhythm, and moving toward a more cloud-based, subscription-based model. I think we're going to see more AA work, more middle-of-the-road budgets, not these big, huge super games, to be more economical and also to get the games out on a faster pace. Because I don't think subscription model, ecosystem model necessary. I don't think it necessarily hinges on these really giant AAA games. Now, they might think differently because Starfield gave them the single greatest single day increase in Game Pass subscribers. Now they're going to track that, I'm sure, because if a lot of those people don't stay on Game Pass, the question will be, what's the value of a game of that size and status? The money that goes into it, the budget, the operating costs, the marketing costs for Starfield was pretty high. And if you're not seeing that impact Game Pass, as well as just regular influx of classic Activision Blizzard titles like Call of Duty or more middle-of-the-road titles. The other thing to consider here is they've sort of lost the console war handedly. It's over. The separation between them and PlayStation and Nintendo is very, very bad. So they're going to set their sights on cloud, ecosystem, mobile, like televisions, tablets, phones. I think that's the greatest opportunity for growth for the Xbox Game Pass ecosystem. And I believe those consumers are going to be less responsive to really big AAA titles, okay? None of this is criticism of Xbox. This is just me sort of diagnosing and predicting where I think they're going to go from a business perspective. When you own this much property and you own King Mobile and you're looking at prospective growth, I don't think they're going to look at consoles. I don't think they're going to look at AAA big next-gen game budgets. I think they're going to look at more middle of the road, more approachable, more casual style games, more cloud, mobile-based games that you could play on a tablet, a phone, or a smart television. And this, again, I think could be absolutely huge for Xbox as a gaming brand. But it continues to feel like that's not what I prize. That's not what I prioritize. So it's making the brand less appealing to me. And seeing Takeshi Numoto's sort of resume, and now that he will be in charge of marketing, it's like, listen, we need somebody that can position cloud and submodel and make it really appealing to the general public, to the masses, because we're not, I don't think they're going to market this as strongly to like the console gamers or like the PC gamers. I continue to think that the cloud ecosystem mobile landscape is the area where they could grow the most. And that consumer base is so different than the more hardcore, more console or PC-based gamers. So we'll see. This shakeup could be the beginnings of a very, very big shift at Xbox. I've been saying for a while, this is just a total evolution. None of this is what I looked at when, 2020, we saw the Series X marketed and all the power and all the graphics. That was the talk. That has taken a complete back seat. We don't see that mentioned anymore at all. And I think this is their future. This is where they're headed. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're one of the paying members on this channel, these videos typically roll over into a members-only debrief. Membership gets you into all of the extra content. But if you don't do memberships on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button and that like button so that I can see you in the next video.